So was Mr. Ho here a part of the ROTC at the time? Is that where he learned his pistol craft? His sister was working on contract to the Defense Intelligence Agency. There's another quite a coincidence. And students from the ROTC were sent to Guantanamo for training, as well as to another place that was very popular in the news, Fort Hood, Texas. And then a certain Dr. Hassan, who was accused of being a murderer at Fort Hood, Texas, is a graduate of Virginia Tech. One of the victims he shot, Dr. Caraveo, was a physician, a psychiatrist at Guantanamo. What a very small world it is in a military of several million people that we all have these connections together. It's just absolutely mind-boggling. But the mind doesn't boggle. We're controlled by just an evil, evil, evil force. And there's just really no other way to explain it, I guess. Last week we didn't have time to discuss the Ethiopian air crash. Nobody cares about it now because it's, lost its 10 minutes of fame in the news. But there were certain little things that come to light that weren't exactly on the news either, because there is no news that's fit to print as far as the New World Order is concerned, unless it's gossip news. But the Israeli army was massed on the border of Lebanon, ready to go like head-to-head war. This plane took off, and the pilot didn't follow the directions of the control tower. He flew opposite to where they wanted to go. And I would tend to believe that would be over the Israeli forces massing over the border, seeing a plane coming at them. They probably did what the American military did some time ago too, shoot to kill and take the plane down. And of course, no one's going to admit that or talk about it. Israel won't brag at, hey, we got one. And the people from Lebanon, their government isn't going to be too keen to say, hey, we screwed up. We had our troops massed, they had their troops massed, and we let a civilian airliner go between a free fire zone. So no one will admit it, but that seems to be the most logical conclusion that we can draw. Economically, we had the Davos Forum go by, and probably like a ship passing in the night, made no difference. Nothing was accomplished. Nothing was done. Lots of money was spent. The head of security shot himself before the conference started, so the Swiss police lost one of their senior officers for some reason that we haven't been able to determine yet. But as far as the money goes, we find out there is a new big state secret. It's called the M3 money supply. That seems to be a state secret. It's no longer published. Some people estimate what it is. But without hard data like that, how can we determine where the economy is going and how it works? And then in typical fashion, the way America works, Saving America's Banking System was a great piece that came along on how they have a company called M&M Associates, and they go out and take over the banks that are going to be foreclosed on. So they have like a tactical unit, not armed tactical unit, that go to certain banks. So they do an example of one called the Riverview Community Bank in Otsego, Minnesota, that gets taken over. So they just wait till about closing time. They come storming in with a replacement staff, seize all the records and papers, boot all the staff out the door, and take over the bank for the Federal Reserve. No one has the slightest clue that this is going to happen. Frequently, a lot of these banks do have a lot of assets on their sheets. So I find it very hard to believe that, I just look at it to some degree that they're just basically stealing these banks because they sell them at a discount to other banks to take them over. And it just looks like nothing more than just sheer out-and-out robbery, because it's not like you're taken to court and things are reviewed to say, well, as a bank you didn't do this and you didn't do that, and maybe your executive should have done that, and they're held accountable, and lawyers come involved to say one thing or another, and everything's presented in the light of day. It's just like a late-night seizure, and everything changes. Very, very bizarre. And then the big thing, of course, is the property scandal coming down the way, where commercial real estate loans are going to be coming up this year up to 2013, $1 trillion in commercial real estate loans. And that might be the tipping thing for a lot of things, because a lot of these loans will be turned down because, you know, the malls are virtually closed and empty. Real estate values have dropped significantly. And, you know, we have to really wonder if this isn't going to be like Strike 2 in, you know, a very, very brutal punch game where we take out domestic real estate and then we take out the commercial real estate. Another just bizarre story that came my way, it's just something by accident because I like looking at old things and researching some old things, but I came across a story from Ethiopia and just was flabbergasted by the fact that we look like we have a former member, not that we have a royal family in Ethiopia anymore, they're long gone by the wayside, but a descendant of the royal family of Emperor IV Johannes of Ethiopia has been confirmed by the United States Senate as CEO of the Millennium Challenge Corporation. Daniel W. Johannes from Ethiopia has taken that office, and he'll be responsible for doling out billions of dollars in aid. He was born in Addis Ababa, hint, hint, and he's fluent in Amharic. So in a lot of ways, that doesn't mean much to too many people. We look at some of the goings-on of this Millennium Challenge Corporation. It's implemented for good social economic policies. I guess that's like structural adjustment the World Bank does. They just come up to you and bully you into accepting various terms and conditions to get money so you don't starve to death, and attach these conditions to take over your country. I get the feeling that's what it's like. This chap was a banker, career banker, retired early, and you know, you really have to wonder what's going on. He was vice chairman of the sixth largest bank in the United States, U.S. Bank, which had assets of $260 billion. He co-founded, you know, the nation's first green banks, jumping on this green bandwagon and such. So, you know, he's already well associated with the banksters and may be very well affiliated with royalty. In his speech to the Senate, he says, "I work as a good emissary for the MCC to partners around the globe, to U.S., Congress, and to stakeholders." And then it just dawned on me, you know, I've heard that word from time to time as they put up some of these jobs, a stakeholder. Like, you know, does that mean like you're killing a vampire by putting the wooden stake on its heart and then somebody hammers it in? Is that kind of stakeholder? Or do you work at the Ponderosa Steakhouse? Are you that kind of a stakeholder? Or who is the stakeholder? Maybe it's the corporations that own the government and control all its members. Maybe they're the stakeholders, eh? If we had to take a guess. But what comes out of this is an article about the treasures of Ethiopia, and it just blows me away what's there. So if we zoom in on the screen, we look at this area of Ethiopia called Axum, and we see this is like the oldest Christian community in the world. It goes back to like the 300s. They made underground churches here carved into solid stone, which is just absolutely amazing. And this is a more modern version, of course, with the stone going up. And, you know, amazing frescoes and artwork. And, you know, it's just not something we get exposure to in the public school system about, you know, what goes on in Ethiopia. I know Haile Selassie was a leader and such, but that's about as far as I got. But then as I started to look in some of the research material behind this, I find that in 1868, Emperor Tuodros' citadel in Magdala was looted by the British. And they just took virtually everything that wasn't nailed down, and if it was nailed down, they ripped it up. And then we find, lo and behold, in 1871, upon assuming the throne, Emperor Johannes IV, same name as our American bureaucrat, wrote a letter to Queen Victoria asking for certain items to be returned. Specifically, the Guise manuscript of the Kebra Nagast, or Glory of Kings, which told the inter alia of Queen Sheba's visit to King Solomon. And as we talked on another show about why they're really going into Yemen, the Ark of the Covenant was supposed to be there. And the University of Calgary was going to look at this castle that the Queen of Sheba and King Solomon had. And they were going to open doors to look into this stuff. And I found that just absolutely fascinating, and absolutely fascinating that the American administration has seen fit to get the most likely a former member of the royal family of Ethiopia on the team as we prepare